Okay, good evening, everybody. Bobby Piton here. Long day ahead. Thanks for coming on a little earlier. Thank you, Maria, for getting the word out. I posted it. And, I forgot about this red pill 78 that was going to be on today. So it's going to be on at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And believe it or not, there's going to be a special guest. Not going to say who that guest is, but it should be pretty cool. So thank you once again for for coming on a little earlier. This might be a little faster. I always say that, but then things seem to go a little longer. But I did find today's readings to be pretty interesting with regards to what's going on in the world. And actually, I think they correspond pretty well with what I think we're all feeling with regards to, seeing justice take place in this world, given what's been taking place for quite some time now, for what seems to be like, I guess decades. And so it's all going to be coming to roost. And I do think that today's readings are super important and tie into that. Okay? So just some quick hellos: Maria, Mark, John, Ann, Donna, and Jules, Mason, Patrick, and so forth. Johnny, thank you all for coming in a little earlier today. Okay, so let's just jump right into it with regards to 104. This is day 104, and we're on Joshua 10, folks. So 104, Joshua 10. Now, keep in mind, when you go through this, this is the God that people often refer to, right, in the Old Testament, the God of wrath, right? So the God that doesn't mess around. When people double cross God, this isn't the loving and forgiving God that we're kind of used to. And the Christian, the traditional Christian faith, this is more of the Jewish faith, right? The Jewish God, there's like this transition and inflection point that takes place when Jesus shows up. God before Jesus shows up is kind of like, I'm going to show you who's in charge. And then Jesus is like, hey, Dad, calm down. Calm down. These are just people here we're talking about. They're just people. They don't know any better. But anyways, when you sit there and you read this and you read what Joshua did, and, literally hunting down these armies, not just, sending in troops to slaughter these armies and take control of these territories with God's, obviously with God's blessing, God's guidance, God's, God's participation, I guess you can say. God was definitely participating and so forth. And so, this is what's going on, folks. You when you sit there and you read this and you think about it in the context of God being on your side and what you're willing to get done, it does give a tremendous amount of insight into history worldwide. Now, if you think about this, let me see here, is when you think about what takes place throughout history of humanity in all these different countries, what seems to take place is we have a situation where different nation states went around the world conquering, right? There's a lot of conquering taking place. And, as a result of all of this conquering that takes place of lands overseas, we've had conquests, across different empires through time, right? People like to vilify one empire over the other. Folks, they were all doing it. Human beings were pretty nasty to each other at times. There's been a lot of killing going on back and forth for thousands of years. We've literally, whoever built the better equipment, better weapons, seems to have gone around and tried to conquer the other people that were maybe a little behind in the times. Okay, so this is the way the world was for a very long time. And in fact, one can argue that as we've hopefully found more humanity, as some would say. Finding more humanity, finding more truth, trying to do the right thing. We've turned our attention to different types of conquest, and conquest against solving various ills and illnesses, and at least that's what we were under the impression of, right? This is what we were thinking, with regards to what kind of system that we've been in. Little did we know that behind the scenes, the weaponry of before, which was very in your face, when you would kill people, you'd go into another country, you'd kill them. You would try to seize territory, kind of like what's described here in Joshua 10. And you would slaughter. You didn't show any mercy, right? It kind of reminds me of that movie, The 300. You go in there and you just slaughter everybody. You wouldn't leave any prisoners behind. And you would just literally take everything. And in this case, Joshua took those 5 kings that were hiding in the cave. He called over some soldiers and he had them put their foot on the neck. Does this sound familiar, folks? On the neck? The foot on the neck? Okay. Let me say it one more time. The foot on the neck. They love to taunt us, folks. They love to taunt the religious in this country by staging various events that are bogus. We all know they're bogus. But they like to use some of the same imagery in the Bible to kind of show us. And then they try to have everybody kneel for them, right? Kneel for the flag, kneel for someone who puts a gun to a baby inside of a woman, right? And pregnant woman, right? Nobody talks about that, but they do sure do have that camera lined up right for that imagery of somebody's, somebody on somebody's neck. So, anyways, this is just Joshua 10, folks. This is what they're talking about here, because Joshua called them over, and then he had them. He had them here. I'll just read it off to you. So basically, come and put your feet on the kings' necks, the 5 kings. And they did as they were told. Don't be afraid or discouraged. Be strong and courageous, for the Lord is going to do this to all your enemies. Then Joshua killed each of the 5 kings and impaled them on 5 sharpened poles where they hung until evening. So think about that for a second, folks. They took these 5 kings that ruled these 5 areas, and they sent a message loud and clear. God is on their side, and they're going to do whatever it takes to do what they wanted to do. Right? This was the deal, folks. And that when you think of this context with what happened, right, back then, and then you look around the world. Now we have a situation on our hands, right? We have a country that wants to try to take over planet Earth. And the question becomes, are they trying to do this by themselves? Or are there some really evil people that have been around for thousands of years who have figured out how to fleece the American people? I did a talk on that today, if you go watch Python Points, about the cabal. And what they did is they ripped us off with trillions of dollars. They sent all this money to another nation, right? And then they took and built up that nation while simultaneously doing everything in their power to undermine the United States. They have encouraged the slaughter of 60 million babies ever since they opened up trade with China in the 70s. I do not think it's an accident. They went to undermine free, loving people being born in the United States. There's about 200 million fewer Americans in the world today because of these abortion/murder policies of these one world orders, these sick bastards. Okay, so then I went over today in the video. If you didn't get a chance to see it, in 1980, the debt to GDP of this country was about 32%. So that means, folks, if you think of it this way, if you were making $60,000 and your house was represented by, as government debt, in this simple example, you would have $20,000 of debt. Fast forward to today, if you were making $60,000, you would have $80,000 of debt. So your debt went from 20 to 80,000. It's quadrupled in 40 years. So 40 years, the amount of debt as a percentage of GDP in this country has gone up fourfold. Folks, I show the government reports. You can go see it for yourself. So this is what they did. They tried to destroy our entire our entire system with regards to bogging it down with debt. Now the question becomes, I don't think a lot of this debt is real, and I've talked about this, and I do think that we need to show that it's not real, and I think we do need to probably do something with regards to a debt jubilee. There's historical precedents for this, and I do think that we might need to do a debt jubilee at some point. Not for the American people that did the right thing and buying debt, with their investments, but definitely for these very corrupt souls that have undermined the United States, fleeced us, and frankly, when I'm reading this, and I think about all these traitors among us, and all these people that have done all these evil things to free people, not just in America, but around the world, I got to tell you, I think we have God on our side to handle these folks very, very, very much like Joshua did. How's that? I think that we should do what Joshua did with these evil people. Not only should we make sure that all the money is put into a sovereign wealth fund on behalf of the United States, but other nation states that they cheated, you should we should turn around and make sure that other nation states get their money back as well and put into a sovereign wealth fund on their respective nation state. And I think that's what we really need to look at doing is that we do have the all clear, so to speak. If you look at religion and you say, you know what, they brought it upon themselves. Folks, these people are trying to kill us all off. Don't kid yourself. They're trying to kill us off. They're trying to poison us. They're trying to do all these things. When you think about it, they're poisoning us through, you can say chemtrails, right? That's one thing that people have talked about. Our water supply. They've put stuff, microdosing us probably in our food supply. They've sold off some of our key food industries to a country that has basically said they want to annihilate us, right? We sold off our pork production to China, Smithfield Foods. Think about that for a second. Keep in mind, this company, Smithfield Foods, which was a roll-up in the United States, they lobbied all these governments for all their pig waste to just go into the local water supplies. I remember it because it was in the annual reports. And I remember thinking that here's all these pig farms across the United States, and this company took the time to figure out how not to be responsible for all the waste. So they would take these pig farmers and they say, we will pay you to raise these pigs, right? But then you own the waste. Okay, that's the deal. You have to deal with all the environmental degradation. They basically put the farmers on the hook for all the environmental stuff, and they just pocketed all the money, folks. I'm not joking around. This is no longer an American company, but you should definitely look into this. I remember reading that in the annual report that these were all lawsuits that were being held everywhere. And so anyways, that's what's going on. So let's go to Luke 16, okay? Jesus said there was a certain rich man who was splendidly clothed in purple and fine linen, and who lived each day in luxury. At his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, who was covered with sores, okay? He was covered with sores. As Lazarus lay there longing for scraps from the rich man's table, the dogs would come and lick his open sores. Finally, the poor man died and was carried off by the angels to sit beside Abraham at the heavenly banquet. The rich man also died and was buried. And he went to the place of the dead. There in torment, he saw Abraham in a far distance with Lazarus at his side. And the rich man shouted, "Father Abraham, have some pity. Send Lazarus over here to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. I am in anguish in these flames." But Abraham said to him, "Son, remember that during your lifetime you had everything you wanted, and Lazarus had nothing. So here he is, being comforted, and you are in anguish. And besides, there is a great chasm separating us. No one can cross over to you from here, and no one can cross over to us from there." Then the rich man said, "Please, Father Abraham, at least send him to my father's home, for I have 5 brothers, and I want to warn them so they don't end up in this place of torment." But Abraham said, "Moses and the prophets have warned them. Your brothers can read what they wrote." The rich man replied, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone is sent to them from the dead, then they will repent of their sins and turn to God." But Abraham said, "If they won't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't be persuaded, even if someone rises from the dead." Think about that, folks. Even it just teed up right for Jesus Christ, right? That even though Jesus rose from the dead, there's some among us that don't believe that we should live a good life. You shouldn't try to live a righteous life. We're surrounded by all these types of folks, and hold on a second here. We're surrounded by all these evil people who think it's okay to lie, to cheat, to steal, all the time. They've done it for so long with no consequences whatsoever, and in fact, they've benefited a great deal. They've gotten undue wealth, undue fame, undue pleasure, all these types of things, accolades, and as a result of being driven by their ego versus their spirituality, and realizing that this life is fleeting in this physical form, and that our soul is eternal, right? And doesn't matter. They don't want to believe it, and there's a lot of people that want both, right? They want to have all the goodies of this physical world and all the goodies of the next life, of the spiritual world, or of your soul. And it's extremely hard to pull off both, right? It takes a tremendous amount of discipline and thought, as well as just reflection, prayer, asking for God's guidance. There's a lot of things that all have to be in place, and it's a balancing act, folks. It takes a tremendous amount of time to do all these things, and even when you do all the work and you try to do all this stuff just right, okay, we still slip up. We still make mistakes. We still fail from time to time. And as a result of failing from time to time, you would hope we fail with less and less frequency, from learning from our mistakes or taking lessons from others that have failed, or other insights. We should never be happy, or not happy. It's not the word I'm looking for. We should never find pleasure in other people's weakness. I know that's tough, right? We kind of sometimes laugh at people that are screwing up. We're all guilty of it. And what I would say is, we want to avoid that as much as humanly possible, because sometimes we're the ones that are screwing up. So you want to do your best not to, laugh at people that are screwing up if they're working in good faith. Now, keep in mind, it's really pretty straightforward as well. I think in the next reading, we're going to talk about the next one, because this one here, with regards to Luke 17, Jesus makes it pretty clear in this one as well as to how you're supposed to treat sinners and so forth, especially sinners that ask for forgiveness. So one day Jesus said to his disciple, "There will always be temptations to sin, but what sorrows await the person who does the tempting." Think about that for a second. There's always going to be sin, but what sorrows await the person who's doing the tempting? It will be better to be thrown into the sea with a millstone hung around your neck than to cause one of these little ones to fall into sin. So watch yourselves. Once again, if you're trying to do things negatively, trying to hurt people consciously by temptations of sin. So, for example, some politicians will encourage others to cheat on their behalf, or lie on their behalf, withhold information on their behalf, or mislead people on their behalf. These are sins, folks. It's real straightforward. I don't care how pious you are. If you take the bait and you follow who's convincing you to sin, you got a serious issue on your hand. Okay? And so someone's asking, how can we watch me on Red Pill? I posted it in Telegram. There's a link for it there. So if another believer sins, rebuke that person. Then if there is repentance, forgive. Even if that person wrongs you 7 times a day and each time turns and asks for forgiveness, you must forgive. Think about that for a second. Now that's some pious stuff there. Somebody keeps screwing you over and over and over. And if they're really sincere and asking for forgiveness, you're supposed to accept that forgiveness. It's not that easy. I'm not sure why do I need to be careful with Red Pill? Hold on a second. Hold on. Aaron, why do we have to be careful? With regards to let's see. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna a couple things. Let's give Celicia is on to something here. I think this is why there's a focus on accepting Jesus and you get into heaven. The mentality is what gives people the belief they can keep sinning. Now keep in mind, Celicia, this is one of the things I've thought about quite a bit with regards to Judaism versus Christianity. Because in Judaism, you got your mitzvahs, you got your scorecard, and if you keep screwing up, God's keeping a ledger, and you don't get to just ask for forgiveness at the very end. You kind of look at the two and you measure them side by side. And with Christianity, that whole scale is kind of reversed based on asking for forgiveness. So I understand this whole concept where it kind of feels unfair, right? It definitely feels unfair. Somebody who is sincerely apologetic at the end of a lifetime of sinning gets the same type of pass as someone who tried to live their life well without a whole lifetime of sinning. And so, I understand. I understand the frustration and stuff, but I also understand that God's children are not a doormat. So in terms of at the end of the day, there's certain things. There's certain things that when we think about it in the context of the rules, we don't get to set the rules. Yes, Clone Motion Studios. We are talking about the greatest book ever written. So it is the Bible. That is correct, Clone. I don't think I've seen Clone Motion Studios before. But that does look like a pretty funny little Star Trooper or whatever, I think from Star Wars. You're on the right track. Greater rewards for holy living, but grace is given freely by Jesus. It's an interesting thing, right? It's interesting that we have to accept that, right? But once again, these are not our rules. It's not, we don't get to set the rules, folks. God sets the rules. The question is, do we want to obey the rules? And, if you think about, I'll give you an example, right? I happen to be a parent. So I get to set the rules for my children, right? My dad and my mom had their set of rules when I was growing up. And my set of rules are, it's not complicated. I really don't care how many times one of my kids screws up. I'm still going to love them unconditionally. And, I'm going to keep working with them. And I'm going to sit around and wait until they figure out whatever the hell it is that they're stuck on. And, and it could be a little aggravating and it could be frustrating. And it could be like, why am I spending this time with this child when I can spend time with another child that's putting in more effort? I get it. I sometimes, what is this? Let me see here. Crypto fascists. He's an adjacent of white nationalist. Yeah, I mean, look, all I can tell you is I have no idea if if Zach is a crypto fascist. I'm not even sure what a crypto fascist is. I'm not sure what that means. But in terms of a white nationalist, you know, once again, I think that this whole concept of white nationalist, black nationalist, yellow, pink, whatever, name whatever color nationalist you want. It's my attitude is we're all Americans first. In terms of we're a spirit that encompasses a physical form. We have different shades. I get it. I'm as pale gets. You don't believe me? Take a look at that arm. Look at how white my arm is. Folks, this is not the lighting. I am as white as I'm basically the white that you see on your screen in that little box right there. The only people that I've seen that are whiter than me are Japanese people. And I've only seen them because I went to Tokyo once, and I've also seen a lot of them in Hawaii. But they're the only people that I've seen in my life that have paler skin than me. So anyways, looks bluish. Thanks, Jim. maybe my veins are showing right through there, right? My veins are blue. So anyways, it is what it is. But I appreciate your concern, Aaron, and I'll be careful with regards to Zach. If it seems as though it's kind of going in a direction that I don't think is good, then I'll get off. Now keep in mind, this person was given to me by someone I respect, and so I don't think he would have asked me to. He would have put me in touch with this person if he didn't think it would be someone worth talking to. So I'll be extremely clear on the conversation, and let's see what happens. But I'll make sure. Look, the only thing I'm talking about, folks, I'm talking about election integrity. I'm talking about Florida, Arizona, Pennsylvania. Actually, Florida's new. That's I don't know if you saw my post, but I basically with regards to Florida, I'm gonna put together a list for I'm going to put together a list with regards to, canvassing some people. I'll probably target a 30% hit rate in terms of, the number of phantom voters for the voters that I look at. There's probably going to be about 1 million records that I'm looking over, and I'm going to narrow it down to basically 300 people. And of that, I'll probably identify, 90 to 100 people that I think, 90 to 100 people that I think are phantom voters. And then we'll kind of see what happens, So that's the deal. Okay, so that's what I would say about that. So the Lord answered, with regards to, him trying to kind of sound the alarm. You got to do forgiveness, right? In the previous story, he wanted to go warn his dad and all of his children, and as a result, the next one is, if you ever had faith as small as a mustard seed, right? This is what I'm calling the campaign for U.S. Senate, folks. It's the mustard seed campaign. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I actually kind of like it that way. I have had a lot of people reach out. I'm not ready yet to start taking campaigning seriously in terms of like a super focused effort, because it's going to be in the evenings, and I have other responsibilities that I'm tending to first with all this election stuff, and obviously during the day it's my job. So what I will say is that with regards to the mustard seed analogy, when I sit there and think about people that run for office, a lot of people focus on money. They focus on how much money they can raise, and they keep getting the message out. And they want to get the message out, and they want to spend money to kind of pound the message into people's heads. This is kind of seems to be, the approach that a lot of politicians take. They want to keep telling you over and over and over again what their what they think, right? Instead of acting it out. And my attitude is a lot different than that. And once again, this is just my philosophy. Maybe it's just different than most than most other people that run for office, which is focus on the really good policies. Explain yourself, why you're going to do it, how it works, and how you're going to make decisions, and then let people decide. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And and if it isn't, it isn't. So I don't have any attachment to ever holding political office. It's not my thing, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, it's like on my bucket list, I want to hold political office. I think that's what's wrong with our politicians, frankly. There's too many damn people that want to hold office, and they think it's on their damn bucket list instead of doing it for the right reasons. If I want to do it, I would like to do it if it makes sense in terms of what I'm putting forward as to what I would try to achieve on behalf of the citizens of the state of Illinois in Congress. It has to make sense for them. I'm not going to change my view and be like, you know what? I really think we need to look at voter integrity nationwide. That's my biggest thing if I became a U.S. Senator. However, when I get there, I'm like, you know what? I forget about that. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm not interested. Okay? I'm sorry. That's a weaselly, scumbaggy thing to do. If I said this is what it is, then I'm going to be like, this is what I'm going to work on. Then it's going to be like, okay, if I have to pause from why I'm there and I got to deal with something else, I have to explain myself. Okay, this is the way we normally behave in our society and other disciplines and other fields. Don't just like turn it off and not make good on what we said we were going to do. But in the political sphere, it seems like it's acceptable. These scumbags lie, cheat, and steal all the time. And when I say scumbags, I mean over half of them. It's at least half of them. We've been getting ripped off for decades. It's very clear. Look at the numbers, and you can see for yourself. They've been stealing trillions of dollars cumulatively over the past few decades. And it all started with this scumbag and Bush crime family tied in with the Clintons. Those two are the most corrupt families in the history of the United States, probably planet Earth. And they've done a tremendous amount of damage to people, not just in the United States, but globally. It's very disturbing. The more you look into it, the more disturbed you are by those two evil families. So anyways, the Lord answered, if you have faith even as small as the mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, may you be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. When a servant comes from plowing or taking care of sheep, does his master say, come in and eat with me? No, he says, prepare my meal, put on your apron, and serve me while I eat. Then you can eat later. And does the master thank the servant for doing what he was told to do? Of course not. In the same way, when you obey me, you should say, we are unworthy servants who have simply done our duty. So, anyways, that's the deal. It is kind of interesting. Alana just got my little link for the Zoom call. It is going to be on Zoom, folks. So I'm not a big fan of Zoom, obviously, for reasons. And, we've talked about. But that's all right. The whole world's going to kind of know what I'm up to here before too long with some of this stuff. So, you can't delay it indefinitely. Let me just kind of text real quick. And I got your email. One second, folks. Got your email. We'll log in 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so that's the deal. Finishing up live cast. Okay. So there's going to be a surprise guest. I'm not going to tell you who that is on this red pill this evening. So, look, the Chinese are spying on me all the time right now, Gretchen. So I'm not really worried about it. These scumbags know what I'm up to. And, that's just life right now. It's not going to change my direction of what I'm doing. And so I do agree that obedience is better than sacrifice. I'd rather do the right thing and then not have to do any sort of sacrifice because I didn't do the right thing. So I do think that's a much better route to take. Okay? So we're in agreement on that point. Okay, so then, let me see here. So then let's go to Psalms 83. So, okay. I'm going to hop off before your interview and pray Psalms over you. Oh, well, thank you, Maria. So let me go through Psalms 83. O God, do not be silent. Do not be deaf. Do not be quiet, O God. Don't you hear the uproar of your enemies? Don't you see that your arrogant enemies are rising up? They devise crafty schemes against your people. They conspire against your precious ones. Come, they say, let us wipe out Israel as a nation. We will destroy the very memory of its existence. Yes, this was their unanimous decision. They signed a treaty as allies against you. Those Edomites and Ishmaelites, Moabites, Hagrites, Gebalites, Ammonites, Amalekites, and people from Philistia and Tyre. Assyria has joined them too, and it is allied with the descendants of Lot. Do to them as you did to the Midianites, as you did to Sisera and Jabin at the Kishon River. They were destroyed by Endor, and their decaying corpses fertilized the soil. Let their mighty nobles die as Oreb and Zeb did. Let all their princes die like Zebah and Zalmunna, for they said, let us seize for our own use these pasture lands of God. O my God, scatter them like tumbleweed, like chaff before the wind, as a fire burns a forest, and as a flame sets mountains ablaze. Chase them with your fierce storm, terrify them with your tempest, utterly disgrace them, until they submit to your name, O Lord. Let them be ashamed and terrified forever. Let them die in disgrace. They will learn that you alone are called Lord. You alone are most high, supreme over all people on earth. Folks, I got to tell you, when I'm reading this stuff and I'm thinking about what's taking place in this world, and I think about which nation states are doing best, or through time, and why the United States has done so well, relative to other nations, I think about the Bible. Let me see here. I don't know. When someone's trolling, looking for stuff that's not related, I did get rid of Clone. So Clone's no longer with us. Okay, so Clone is no longer with us. But, with regards to, this whole concept that there's one God who's in charge, right? And I know that this is something that, if you look at cartoons, I have young children right now, and I've noticed that there's a lot of, cartoons now that are trying to slip in religion. They're trying to slip in different religions, and they do it very subtly. I have to tell you, they're very slick about it. And if you don't know the history of other religions, you won't even know that they're doing it. And so I'm not going to go into specifics because I'm not in the mood to get into an argument right now with anybody who's listening that might be part of another religion. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to observe how, with hopefully with the Christian faith, Judaism and so forth, you see what you get. There is no deception. We don't try to sneak in the message and kind of sneak our way into stuff because it's not accepted on its own. So we have to kind of connive our way in. But some of these other religions do like to connive, and they do like to figure out how to shyster our youth. With some of this stuff is satanic. Some of it is, some of it is other faiths that, no offense, but I can come up with my own faith. Like you'd be like, Bobby, you're nuts. And you should be like, Bobby, you're nuts. Because I am not one to create a new faith. I happen to follow the faith that's been serving humanity pretty damn well for thousands of years. So my attitude is I'm not going to try to create some faith and be like, hey, you got to accept me because I'm Bobby. You got to listen to what Bobby says because I got the Bobbyism religion. Like you'd be like, buddy, go back to what the rock you crawled out of underneath, right? And in my point is, is, we reserve the right. You have the right to be delusional, I guess, with your religion at times. People do have the right to be delusional, but we also have the right, as human beings, as well as having our own faith, to be like, we don't give a shit. You don't know you're nuts. You get out of here, and that's okay too. And so I'm saying, as an American nation, we are founded and based in Judeo-Christian values. Those values are predicated on this concept of freedom and justice for all, equality among our men and women, not this 2/3 horse shit that we see in the Middle East, where women have 2/3 of a vote. No, that should never fly here. Or that people should be covered up, walking around, and you got to cover them up. They can't be seen. None of that stuff. It's like we have a right to speak up against it. Now, you can try to do that stuff, and that's fine. But we have a right to say we don't want it here, and that's just the way it is. And so, we don't. I don't see Americans trying to move into the Middle East. I don't see Americans moving into some of these nations that try to espouse this horse shit on U.S. soil. I just don't see it happening. So you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing it. And so maybe that's too radical, right? I'm radical for saying this. Because I'm saying, we should keep the score a little bit every once in a while. You should say, if this stuff is so good and these are such great ideas, why aren't more people flocking to them willingly? Why do they have to be forced onto you? And there's a key concept. It's called power versus force. If you have a phenomenal idea and you have a powerful idea, and the idea on its own stands on its own, that's called power. That's called power, natural power. Okay? Now, if you have to force that idea onto people by threats, by trying to conquer them through force, by making them cover themselves with a mask or a walking mailbox, right? That's not power. That's called force. That stuff is evil. Okay? That's the way it is. God doesn't want us to be slaves. God wants us to be free, and he wants an equal set of rules for all of us. We are all equal spirits before God in this physical form, and that's the way it is. And so, that's what we need to be concerned about. So here we go. Last part here, and then we got to wrap it up. I gotta get on my next call. Lazy people want much, but get little. But those who work hard will prosper. Now, folks, I think we all know plenty of lazy people in our lives. There's a lot of lazy people. Politicians, that fit this bill. They're lazy. They figure out what's the most they can get with the least amount of work. Actually, there's a lot of companies in our society now, a lot of industries, where this is the attitude. The attitude is not give more expecting less, right? You should create more value than you take. The attitude seems to be, how do I give that person less than what they deserve and take as much as I can for myself? This seems to be the prevailing zeitgeist of what we're living in right now. It's really disturbing. And I do think we can change it by just raising our expectations. So we, the people, need to raise our expectations of who we support and the businesses that we support, the institutions that we support, how we give our time and energy to different, different ideas. We should spend more time praying and thinking and reflecting on the Bible than watching a bunch of programming, right? That's why it's called television programming, television program. They try to program us to think a specific way. And that's what's super dangerous, is that when we're not aware of how they're trying to brainwash us, unfortunately, they're going to brainwash a bunch of our neighbors who are just going to do silly things and then think that we're the ones that are a little crazy. And so it's a constant battle that we have to continue to fight back on because, we're outnumbered in a sense. You look at how many people have kind of fallen under the spell of these technologies. It's extremely disturbing. So anyways, with that, today was pretty quick, actually. There weren't as many readings as normal. But so I want to end it with St. Michael's prayer. Okay, so St. Michael's prayer: defend us, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of thy heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. And so with that, I just want to say God bless you. God bless your family and friends. And may God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world. May peace be with you. And if for some reason you don't have peace, make sure you follow a real religion, not one that just got made up. Like, that's all I can tell you. Don't follow a religion that just, like, it's got no basis other than, it just sounded kind of good off of the back of a Cracker Jack box or something. I don't know. Maybe there's some religions that kind of sprung up that way. I have no idea. But anyways, that's about it. Have a wonderful evening. I'll be on in about 15 minutes with Red Pill 78. The link is on Telegram. I also put it on Gab. So have a look. I'm going to take a quick little break, make sure my thing is working fine. I'm going to sign in over here, and then I will see you guys tomorrow at 8:30. I'll be back for day 105. God bless, and I will see you in a little bit if you join me at 9 p.m. Thank you.